Hi, I'm Daniella Chrysochou, and this is my true story.
Hey, this is Ksenia, and this is our true story. Today we're having Daniella Chrysochou, who is an enterprise agile coach, a wine lover, and just a great girl.
Thank you, Ksenia. Thank you so much for having me here.
So, Daniella, can you say what enterprise agile coaching is in one sentence in very, very simple words?
Yeah. It's having, enterprise agile coaching is having an adaptive mindset that allows you to remain relevant in today's competitive world.
All right.
Boom.
Boom. And you teach us how to have this mindset.
Yes.
Let's put it this way.
Yes.
Adaptive mindset. This is what it is about.
Adaptive mindset, I would say.
So it's technically just flexibility in our business operations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Not fearing to take risks and experimentation, which is very rare nowadays.
So Daniella, I wanted to ask you about this terrible time that influenced so many people, COVID, 2020 and stuff. How was it for you?
Yeah, so I'm a type of person that whatever I put my mind into, and I do it to the extreme, right? So being in the UK during COVID, it was hard because the one thing that we lost as people, I guess, is the human interaction and our professional identity, because you were no longer that fun person, the energetic person that goes into the room and everyone like you can whiteboard ideas with and you go out for drinks with. So automatically I became the Daniella that, wakes up in her PJs every morning and then, turns on her laptop and just does that for like 10 hours a day, right? So I kind of lost myself a little bit, and because I am so career driven, I felt the need to kind of put more effort into this. So I ended up working very long hours without spending any time for myself, any self-care. I focused too much on my career instead of myself. And what happened is I burned out. Because I took it I took it upon myself to make a mark for myself in my job, to kind of prove to myself that I wasn't losing who I am. So because I had lost the social aspect of that life, and for 2 years or so that was going on, I had nothing to kind of balance it off. I burned out, and I realized when that happened, because I would get very sad but very angry at the same time. So I would get frustrated by something very small, and that frustration would go very high up, and it would be, not related to the actual trigger, right? And I would find myself, if I couldn't do something at work, I would cry. I would have trouble concentrating, and the more you have trouble concentrating, the more you try to concentrate, and the more you fail to do that. So I would have terrible terrible days where I actually had to say to my manager, today's is actually a very bad day, so I won't be able to dial in, or that's it. And thankfully I had a very understanding manager who he was fine with that. So, if I had to actually take a day off because I wasn't up for it, because I was really struggling emotionally, that would be okay. And then obviously I would do the work another day. So it wasn't like I wasn't impacting my work.
Did you tell your manager that you're struggling? I mean, were you transparent about that? Actually, not every person can do this. And
I know.
It's wow, actually.
Yeah. I know. And it's hard, but it's important to actually have people that you feel that you can open up to, and emotional well-being is so important. And as you have days off that you're sick because you're physically sick, you should actually be able to say to your manager or whoever it is, today is a bad day. emotionally. So can I use one of my sick days? I don't understand why the difference. So I actually did that. And speaking to people, other friends, they found that very strange that I would openly say, I'm struggling. But it came to a point where I actually asked for help, I went to an occupational therapist, and I opened up because I could not work anymore. So I had a few sessions with the therapist, and we talked through the issues. And the advice was, for people who are actually burning out, you need to just stop. And it's so hard to just turn off your brain and just take a break. And I did.
That's really cool, but how do I understand if I burned out or not? Because, we're all struggling at work sometimes. I mean, we're all tired, and where is this point, and how can I understand that's it? I mean, is it when I cannot go any longer, or what would be the main sign here?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So it is an irrational sense of anger that arises from situations where you wouldn't actually get that. And the second characteristic is inability to focus. And as a person, if you're unable to focus, you try more. And the more you try, the more useless you feel, right? And it's a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. And that cycle feeds into the anger that you feel. So you get into like a very unhealthy cycle of emotions that you can't detach yourself from. So your sense of self and value diminishes. And I actually felt that there's something wrong with me, and that's the signs that you should take to actually to realize that there's something wrong and I should ask for help.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Well, me personally, I have a lot of issues with anger, but I don't think that's burned out yet. It's a burnout yet. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, one last thing. I mean, imagine, it's a terrible thing to imagine, but let's imagine that COVID happens again. What would you do differently this time?
So that's actually, I took some advice from my therapist. So it's little things that I would have done differently that make all the difference. I actually have incorporated them in my lifestyle now. So one is write down your emotions. Especially when you're isolated from other humans, you rarely will pick up the phone and just call someone to tell them you're struggling. So just take a piece of paper, keep a diary, and just write down your emotions. Just by externalizing them, you acknowledge them and you face them more easily rather than, being pent up and just inside you. The second thing is little acts of self-care. So I would go, my therapist recommended going for a walk around the block, but not just actually doing the walk, appreciation walks, that's what they're called. So I think we've talked about this before, right? So yeah, just walking around and just seeing the leaves of the tree changing color, or you see like a brick that had on the house that's a different shape or something, and just really focusing on that little thing to take your mind out of everything else, and appreciate the beauty around you and the beauty that you would find in the most weird places. And I guess a third thing would be to block time in your diary. Always block time. If you don't allow people to overstep, because everyone wants to get their job done. Everyone wants to have calls with you, and you have to prioritize, right? And they have to prioritize as well, right? So I always try to block like an hour in my time, in my day, whenever I can, just to kind of chill, just not do anything, have my lunch, and then just, because otherwise you go into this non-stop. You have to like from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. I have to still work. You have to remember you're a human being, and your work is just a part of you. It does not define you, and that's what I found most challenging to do, because I define Daniella as a successful consultant, who gets paid well in London, and she has to these expectations put on her, not just by myself, I guess also from my upbringing, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I had to detach this, I guess, from who I want to be. And it is a part of me, but that's what it is. It is a part of me.
Well, is it generally is it generally normal to be, your profession technically, or your job? I mean, how much should I, well, because I have the same problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know if it's that problem, but I mean, like, I associate myself a lot with what I do. And then when I start failing at work at a certain point, or I think that I'm failing at work, I'm like, everything fails. It's
Yeah.
like elevator down, like, doof, crash. Nothing else matters. I mean, should we kind of like decide that I'm not my job, or should we embrace part of it? Or is my job part of me? I mean, like, what would be the healthiest approach here from your personal perspective?
So the healthy approach would be, from my perspective, to actually do something that you love. And I know it sounds so cliche to actually do something. Everyone says that, but it's not necessarily, you know, even if you're in a role that you don't like. I'm not saying, you know, you were dreaming to become an artist and, you know, you just go and do that. There's little things that you can do to shape what your role is, and just try to take initiative and empower yourselves to actually pick up some things that you make, you know, that relate more to who Ksenia is, or to who Daniella is. And this is why I didn't choose psychology, because that was the easy way. I mean, I could have gone to psychology, but I just wanted to do something different and apply who I am into that context. So going back to agile is not traditionally the most people-oriented ways of working, let's say. It has started shifting that way. But what differentiates me is that humanistic lens that I take and I bring in, that most coaches I know tend to forget about that human agenda.
So Daniella, how did you actually get to what you're doing now? What is your path?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I loved watching any kind of show that had to do with psychology and human behavior. I don't know if you actually know Criminal Minds, but it's one of my favorite series. You should watch that. But I always looked out for an opportunity to learn more about people, the brain, how it works, how you think, and how that kind of defines your behavior. So I would read like books for psychology, and fun fact that I love reading books on serial killers and cannibals, and like anything that's true story that explains why some people do what they do, right? So I loved like this extreme cases, and I wanted to understand the psyche behind it, right? So I also grew up in a house where my mom is a psychologist, so she always tends to like maybe try to psychoanalyze me, but in a good way, right? Like why, like reading my thoughts and why am I saying that?
Can be annoying, I guess.
Yeah, it can be. It can be annoying. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching that. But it came naturally to me when I finished high school, and I had to decide what I wanted to do. I decided to do psychology. So I know, all these high school students, they just don't know what their path is. And for some reason, for me, it was so clear. And everyone was like, oh no, you should do law. You should go to become a doctor. And no, for me, it was nothing. Everyone was saying no. And I said, yes, I'm going to do that. So I decided to go into psychology, and then I took a year off because I didn't know what was next. So I did what I wanted to do, but I didn't feel that my path kind of stopped there. So I took a year off, and I volunteered in mental hospitals in Sri Lanka. So I went there for 3 months to kind of understand if abnormal and clinical psychology was the path for me. And it was not. I spent 3 months working in mental hospitals where it was just women, and the National Institute of Mental Health. And I also taught English to people, to teenagers who want to, start a job, and etc. So I think I always promised myself I'm actually going to go back, because I did make connections with a lot of patients there. And I did think that it wouldn't be... I kind of was worried I'm going to lose myself if I stayed there any longer. So yes, I did actually make the decision to leave after the placement was done. I tried some clinical psychology, and I did support, for example, I also worked with at my university with someone who's doing research in her PhD. So I was her research assistant in people at risk for developing schizophrenia. And I just realized that wasn't something that I could do long term, and it was not sustainable as Daniella, So for me, it was a tough call, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So then on, I decided, where else can I apply what I know about psychology at a larger scale and help people, because I felt that I wanted to help a number of people rather than one-to-one. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's when I decided to go into organizational psychology and psychiatry, and I specialized in that. And it was, the twist of events, how it happened. My professor, she was a freelancer in consulting, and she introduced me into that world. And she said you can actually do a lot of change and impact and helping people who are going through organizational changes into in the work. So I applied myself in the business world. I think that by doing what I do, I try to help to help those people, rather than, it's not about money for me. This is not why I went into that business world. It's about the people, and they just happen to be in business. So.
But are you sincere now when you're saying that? This is the question. I mean, like, you're talking about helping people, but money is part of why we're working. Yeah. So how much is it for you really help, and how much is it for you like I'm earning money in percentage? I know it's very direct and probably provoking question, but how would you answer it, like being super sincere? I'll
be very sincere. Okay, so obviously everyone wants money. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I would like to have a job where I get paid well enough. But I think there comes a point, and I've experienced it, because in the UK, I was obviously paid quite well because I had a lot of years of experience, and in the UK it's a different salary, right? But I hit a wall, because if you hit that wall where, as myself, I don't think I'm having an impact, and it's so important, I would never be able to work in a job that pays, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, and I'm asked to do something that is just, you just fill in that form, you just do this, and you just like kind of investment banking, you just do this and get money and that's it. I would not be happy. So for me, the happiness factor comes into play. So there's a fine balance. I do want to get enough money to be able to travel, because I love traveling, to live a comfortable life. But if I don't feel that I'm getting anything out of this and I'm not giving back, then that's done for me. I need to move on. And I've done this in the past. So I would say, I don't know if that answers your question, but...
It does, I think.
Yeah.
It does. A question, I mean, it's a very important question for myself. At times I feel, and that's like, I'm asking for basically free professional, free advice.
Yeah.
So why our relationship with our managers and with our colleagues, our work relationship are at times so important to us? I sometimes feel like I pay so much attention to that. If I'm mistreated at work, if I see that like my manager is like, doing something that I feel super bad about. I mean, like, or I think that he doesn't value me enough. Things like that. Why does it hurt me so much? And, at times, a relationship with people out of work, it's not so painful to me. Is it because I associate myself with a job so much?
It could be, yeah. So it's all about association, and as I said, if someone put you on the spot, how do you define yourself? Right? There's some people who might say, first I'm like a football lover, then I'm a father, then I'm a son, and then I'm a consultant or an agile coach or whatever they are, right? So we are groups, we are parts of different groups, but it's all about how you define yourself. And also, I guess in terms of the workplace, it's a time where you venture out of on your own to make something out of yourself, right? Out of Ksenia. And if you feel that you're not valued, then it's like you are being diminished as a person, that you're not good enough to actually make it on your own. So I feel that's why it hurts a bit more.
So I really like this thing, how you define yourself, and then like these 3 things that you write on Instagram, like mom and I don't know, manager and something else. What are your 3 things on your Instagram profile?
I would probably go with world traveler. I actually do travel a lot. I've been to it's a big passion of mine, been to 3 countries already. So I want to travel the entire world. That's my number 1 priority. Then I would go with agile coach, who and psychologist, I would say, with humanistic lens. And then the 3rd one would definitely be wine lover.
Wow, good. And then, well, let's add some positivity because we talked a lot about difficult things. What would be, well, what does really make you happy at work?
Being a part of a group that actually is effective and we work well together, and being recognized for my contributions, and then feeling I'm actually making a difference, wherever that might be. Might be like a junior person I work with or at a client. Just make you feel that you go in every day, and then you slightly change something that wouldn't have been there that way if you didn't go into the office that day.
So Daniella, is there an advice that you can give to the guys that are watching us?
Yeah, I would probably say love yourself. As we said earlier, little acts of self-care go a long way to sustaining your well-being.
And what is the most important one that you personally do?
Yeah, so I read a book about this, and it said that there's a theory that says you have to make sure that your first 30 minutes of every day reflect what you would like the rest of your day to look like. So you can do positive affirmations, etc. But my favorite one is having a cup of coffee, listening to my favorite music. The second advice I would probably give is extend that love to others. Always put your mask first before you help others. Right, that is a common phrase that it's always said on airplanes. And it does have a meaning, because you always have to make sure that you're comfortable and you're safe and you're in an equilibrium mentally, so that you can actually have the strength and the stamina to help other people. So it's a simple thing, right? Checking in with the other person. And you know how we used to have a cup of coffee, grab a cup of coffee with people? Just do that and check in with them. If you're struggling, you know, that means others have probably gone through the same thing or are currently going through the same thing.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you very much, Daniella, for this beautiful conversation with us.
Thank you very much, Ksenia, for having me. It was a pleasure.